everybody, and welcome to the fourth installment of our Day of the Beast video log. This episode is entitled The Thing in the Well. As you remember from last time, one of the characters, Angela Morales, died, and so the player had to roll up a new character, and he rolled up Sophocles Corinthos, who's a Greek Orthodox monk and goat herd, and his goat Dartmouth, his prize goat. The hook for today's episode is that Paul Lemond, the psychic that the characters encountered in the first episode, has been arrested in connection with 3 murdered children in Boston, and Robert Carrington asks the investigators to help. Robert Carrington is actually out of the country, but he's going to send his own lawyer in to help Paul, but in the meantime he asks the investigators to take a look. The investigators go to Boston and visit Lemond in prison, and he tells them that he had been having nightmares of children being murdered in Boston, quite vivid nightmares, and he went to tell the police, but the police sent him home and didn't really pay any attention until about 3 to 4 weeks later, when the kids had actually been murdered and the police had decided to arrest Paul Lemond because he certainly must have something to do with them. So the investigators try and find out something about the murders. They manage a couple of fast talk rolls which allow them to take back some information from the coroner's report. They also talk to the press, and they meet a reporter who actually has been doing some investigating, and he tells them that he has evidence that in 1891 there were a couple of murders as well in the same area with the same modus operandi. And again, they were close to what is called the Cornwallis Mansion, and this is the only thing that these murders have in common. That it's children and that it's in the same area, but there is a gap of 37 years between those murders. So the investigators look into this a little more, and they find out that Dr. Cornwallis and his family lived in that estate, and that the Cornwallises had a son named Jeremy who died very soon after childbirth, and his parents then subsequently died in something like a murder-suicide scenario, and that Cornwallis' sister, who was also living with them at the time, suffered a nervous breakdown after the fact and was hospitalized for 3 weeks. When they go to the Cornwallis mansion, they run into a little delivery boy who tells them that he delivers the groceries to the house every day where old Miss Cornwallis lives, and he tells them that he basically, delivers a chicken a day, some milk, some spuds, things like that. When they enter the mansion, they meet Miss Cornwallis, who's in her late 60s, and she's obviously going dotty at this stage. She is mentally deranged, and they find the place in huge disarray. So basically the investigators sit down and have a nice talk with her and have some tea, and one of them sneaks out and starts looking around the place. And they find, rotting food in the kitchen, and they also find a way upstairs where they discover Dr. Cornwallis's laboratory. Nothing has changed. Probably she hasn't touched anything in the last 30-odd years. And they find some notebooks, some diaries, some pieces of evidence, some, papers, the stuff you find in Call of Cthulhu campaign, stuff written in Latin, some letters, and also a pair of very strange spectacles. And they take it all with them, take their leave of Miss Cornwallis, and start reading. And they find out a couple of things. First of all, they find out that the glasses are very strange. When you put them on, you enter into a completely different landscape. And actually, one of the investigators does that and is nearly attacked by some random being that lives there. And from reading Dr. Cornwallis's notebooks, they find out that his wife came across those glasses. She put them on and was attacked and subsequently impregnated by something from the beyond. And so basically the child that she gave birth to was not Dr. Cornwallis's child, and when she saw the child she went crazy. So we can only imagine that this is some mythos creature hybrid that she gave birth to. So we find out that Dr. Cornwallis then tried to raise the child in the bathtub, and also that he declared his son to have died to the public, because obviously his son doesn't really look like other children, so they don't want he doesn't want word to get out. Subsequently, it's quite unclear, but it seems like Dr. Cornwallis was attacked by his wife with a knife, and he took a gun, and there was a fight, and the gun went off, so he died of a knife wound, and his wife died of a shotgun wound or a gun wound. And basically they piece the evidence together, and they come to the conclusion that the earlier murders in 1891 took place during the 3-week period that Dr. Cornwallis's sister was hospitalized. So they now come to the conclusion that whatever Mrs. Cornwallis gave birth to was alive after the parents killed each other, and that the reason why the murders took place was probably because this something was feeding. And as soon as the sister got back, she resumed feeding that thing, and now that she's getting old and forgetful, she forgets feeding the thing in the well, Jeremy, and that's why the murders have resumed. And so they look around the place a little bit, they look around the house, and they find a well which is blocked up with rocks, and as they investigate further they find chicken bones, so they all piece it together. So they stake out the place, and one day they actually one night they see Jeremy, which is an amoeba kind of being with loads of tentacles and the head of a baby, and they watch him, and they decide that, you know, he's slug-like. So what they do is they get a lot of salt and they dump it on him. It's not successful, but it's a nice try. I thought it was a really nice try. So killing Jeremy is actually quite difficult because being an amoeba, he just basically absorbs wounds very easily, and they follow him, and he vanishes into the well, and they decide to blow up the well. And then they try to get Paul Lamond free. They do this basically by first of all drawing attention to the earlier murders with the same modus operandi, something that the police hadn't investigated. They also ask the police to open the crypt, and they tell them that they will find that the sarcophagus is empty, and that actually the murderer is Jeremy. And they find an empty sarcophagus full of stones. And of course then Paul Lamond's lawyer comes in, and he basically persuades the police in no uncertain terms, using a lot of legalese on them, that the only evidence they have are prophetic dreams. And that's completely circumstantial, and also who would believe them? I mean, who would be so stupid as to say, well, 3 kids are going to be killed and I'm going to tell you all about it, if you are the murderer yourself. So basically, after a lot of discussion, they managed to get Paul Lamond released. So the investigators were successful, and they also find clues with regard to the actual Day of the Beast campaign. They find reference to something called the Brotherhood of the Beast that seems to be waiting for the birth of a child, which they need in order to fulfill their great plan. It's not quite clear what their great plan is. They find out that Dr. Cornwallis was a member, that the spectacles were made by somebody named Baron von Hauptmann, who lives in Romania, and they get the address as well, and they decide to travel to Klausenburg in Romania to meet with this Baron and find out more about the Brotherhood of the Beast. And that's the next episode, where the investigators investigate the Castle Dark. Bye!